Mark Lewis.
Hello.
So we're talking about your cool jazz trio.
Oh, I like that trio.
And why do you use that configuration of instruments?
Oh, you mean the trumpet and the bass and the sax?
Yeah.
Well, Richard has a tone which blends well with my tone, and we like to play cool jazz, which is a type of music that is kind of laid back, but also utilizes elements of bebop as well, and we like that. It's the bass. Bass provides the time, the groove, the feel, the structure, but it can also be a member of a polyphony, which can improvise either structure or lines. That's what polyphony is 3 melodies going off at the same time, or more. It's 2 or more actually, but we have 3 people. And the trumpet, well, he has a similar range as the alto. If I switch to Barry, then Richard has the lower horns as well. He plays all different horns, you see. So he'll go down to the mellophone, and that has a trombone-like sound. So then it blends very well with the baritone. So that's why I like to call it the cool jazz trio. Has something for everybody.
And here's Steve Luceno.
Good morning. No matter what time of day it is.
So we're on the way to Vashon to do a cool jazz trio gig with Mark Lewis, Richard Person, Steve Luceno, and you're the bass player.
I am the bass player in a band of 3 jazz musicians with some like-mindedness to each other, and the unusual thing about the band is that there's no chord instrument and no drummer. No steady like stick trap set drummer, no piano, no guitar. So it's a double-edged thing. It puts a burden on me in one way, but it also releases me in another way. So to play with that, to know that I don't have to, but I can provide nice steady rhythm for the band. Very simple, fundamental things to allow the other linear instruments, since all 3 of the instruments are linear, really not really usually heard. You don't usually hear chords on a saxophone, occasionally with cluster kind of sounds, or a trumpet. And you're not, you will hear some chords on a bass, but it's generally speaking 1 note at a time. So with that linear approach with 3 instruments, I can either think of myself and place myself in a support role and play simple rhythmic patterns, or I can join that linear concept and just weave 3 melodic lines between the 3 instruments to create the harmony, which you ordinarily would hear from the guitar or the piano. So those all of them can be moving lines, 3 moving lines. And of course, it's not a new concept, it's ancient to play with linear instruments, but it's one that you don't really hear too often, and it's a nice challenge. And because Mark and Richard, and I hope myself, are good listeners, we listen to where each other's lines are going and try to place them in appropriate directions, whether we're moving together or whether we're moving in contrary motion. And it really seems to work out very nicely. The like-mindedness of the 3 of us seems to make it really enjoyable for me, the other guys in the band, and the audience.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome. Anytime.
So now here we are with Richard Person, the trumpet player in the Cool Jazz Trio. So what do you like about this group?
One of the amazing things about this group is the communication between the three players. What happens with Mark and I is pretty magical, and then when we get Steve in the mix, he's very magical as well. And so we have this interesting communication that gets to happen, and it's not impeded by anybody else stepping on it. So harmonically, we can do challenging relationships, pitch relationships that are then not necessarily too hard to understand, or maybe even easier for the audience to understand when it's not complicated by a bunch of additional noise going on.
You mean other instruments?
Yes, right.
Yeah, I like the sound too. It's full, very full sounding, but also
kind of surprising, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very sparse, but it's also full. At times, it's just like, whoa, there's a whole band playing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how long have you been performing with Mark?
Well, I think that the first time was about 1980, 1981 maybe. And
that
I
was a while
actually,
ago.
Yeah, recorded on one of the early albums, The Border Crossings, with him.
Oh, right.
And so, yeah, so I've known him a long time, but he left and was out of the country for a long time. But he always knocked me out. His playing always knocked me out. It's really nice ears and good headspace.
Yeah, I think the feelings are mutual.
It's probably why we have so much fun.
And now I'm here with Tad Enderle. And one thing I found is that you can never have too many bass players on speed dial because they are so popular, the good ones. And Ted is our other bass player for the Mark Lewis Cool Jazz Trio. And Ted, now what do you think is different about playing with this group than some of the other jazz groups you play with?
It's a little bit less structured. Richard and Mark are great musicians. They blend together great. They complement each other, and I try to fit in as a third member to complement what's going on. Again, it's always unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen, and I like that a lot. And we don't have a drummer, which I have to work a little harder, but I like that too. You know, I can be free to play as a melodic instrument, or I can just lay down the groove, and it's fine with everybody, and they have a good time. And they're just great players and nice guys to be around.
Thanks, Ted.
You're welcome.